What am I? Pandit Shri Ram Sharma Acharya. Gita says that the senses are fine, finer than senses in the mind. Finer than mind is the reason. But what is finer than the reason is the soul. One has to progress step by step to experience the soul. In the last chapter, methods of experiencing the soul above the body and senses were narrated. In this chapter, efforts will be made to determine the real form of mind and to prove the soul to be even higher than mind. Ancient philosophy considers mind and intellect as separate, while modern philosophy considers the mind as the highest developed form of intellect. There is no need to take any special interest in this discussion. The difference between the two is so minute that from a broad outlook nothing different appears. Both consider the mind and intellect as one. Both consider that intellect is comparatively more subtle than mind. For the convenience of readers, we would take intellect as a developed form of the mind and shall start the practice ahead. Till now you have recognized as to what are our physical coverings. Now efforts will be made in this chapter to narrate as to what the real ego is and how different it is from I. This is a subtle test. It is easy to feel the material garments, but it is not so easy to separate the real ego from the subtle body. For this purpose, more capabilities and consciousness of higher order are needed. Even after experiencing its separate identities from physical matter, the astral body, stepped in egos, confuses everything. Many persons have started considering mind as soul. Hence onwards, we shall not analyze the form of mind, but narrate such methods with the help of which you may dissect the body and the ugly ego. You would be able to find as to which is ego and what is what. You may analyze it with the help of mind and compel it to give proper reply to these questions. In between the soul and body, there is conscious mind. For the convenience of aspirants, mind can be divided into three parts. First part of the mind is named as Paravrat Manha. This is found in birds, animal and undeveloped creatures and man alike. It is also called the Gupta Mana, hidden mind, or Supta Mana, sleeping mind. It keeps the body in its usual state. The body goes on functioning even without our knowledge. The reflex action like digestion, circulation of blood, production of various juices, blood, flush, digestive matter, bones, semen discharge of matter, breathing in and out, opening and closing of eyelids, etc. go on automatically. Inculcation of habits is done by this mind. This mind takes time to grasp a thing, but once it does, then it does not allow to leave easily. This is the repository of the experiences of our ancestors and also our own, which have enabled us to raise ourselves higher than animal life. Man was a being of ordinary intelligence and jealousy, worrying nature, prejudice, selfishness, anxiety, and such instinct of that time lay in a corner of the mind. The low instinct of subsequent births, which have not been done away with by strong efforts, are stored in this section. This is a vertebral museum in which things of all sorts can be found. If there are some good invaluable ones, there are others which are rotten, odd and horrible. The triads of greed, violence, cruelty, anger, lowliness, etc., which are found in uncivilized men, animals and tyrants, are also stored in a subtle form here. It is a different thing that an elevated mind keeps these instincts under control and sometimes fully or sometimes partially. Rajasic and Tamasic desires pertain to this mind. Gratification of senses, pride, anger, hunger, thirst, sex desire, sleep, etc. are forms of Paravrat Manha. The second part of the mind should be termed as Prabhuddha Mana, which is above the earlier stated Paravrat Mana. While reading this book, you are making use of this part of mind. The work of this part is to ponder, comprehend, analyze, compare, imagine, advance, reasoning, and determination, etc. Ready wit, wisdom, cleverness, experience, examining the situation or functions of this Prabhuddha mind. Remember that Prabhuddha mind is not ego, neither is Paravrat mind. After pondering for a while, you can easily separate it from ego. Detailed analysis of the functions of mind and its natural tendencies cannot be described in this small book. Those who wish to get more information in this respect should study good books on psychology. It would be sufficient at this stage that you should know that Prabhuddha mind is a wheel, not ego. The third, the highest type of, is called the Adhyatma Mana. There is no development of this amongst the majority of person. I am of the view that it has started developing in you somewhat because you are reading this book with concentration and you are also feeling attracted towards the subject narrated in it. This part of mind is recognized by us to be that of highest degree and mutual understanding, self-inspiration, message of almighty, intellect, etc. are born or received here. Love, sympathy, mercy, grace, justice, faith, broad-mindedness, religious learnings, truth, purity, closeness, etc. appear here. Devotion to God is born here. The secrets of hidden knowledge are unraveled in this part of the mind. The experience of pure ego for imparting the instructions of which we are trying through this chapter can be had from the zone of consciousness of this very Adhyatma Mana. But do not forget this. This highest part of mind too is merely a tool. This too is not ego. Don't think that we praise one part and deplore the other part of the mind, and that is a burden or hindrance. It is not so. Everybody thinks that you have advanced near real power and the knowledge of the self with the help of the mind, and you will need it much longer for the development of your mental faculties. Therefore, every part of mind is useful in its own way, provided proper use of each is made. Ordinary men so far utilize only the lower part of the mind. In their mental world, there are still so many known and unknown secret places which could not be thought of even in a dream. Therefore, the acharyas, in place of blaming the mind, advise the newly initiated disciple that instead of discarding their hidden power, they should make it active in the right manner. The instructions being imparted to you can be put into practice only through the agency of mind. Through it alone, the actions of understanding, adopting, and achieving success can be gone through. Therefore, we are directly talking to your mind and are submitting to it. Sir, receive the knowledge coming from your higher class and open your gates for her the entry. We pray to your intelligence, Goddess, concentrate on the supreme element and put least hindrance in the path of divine knowledge entering through the spiritual mind and greater knower of truth. Exercise. Sit humbly in a peaceful and comfortable posture to receive the knowledge, which is to be imparted to you through the highest action of the highly subtle mind. In the previous chapter, you had learned that I is something mental beyond the body, which stores thoughts, emotion, and tendencies. Now you have to advance further and feel that these worthy objects are different from the soul. Think that innumerable feelings of anger, love, jealousy, hatred, progress, etc. enter the mind. You can separate each, check them, meditate, and analyze them. You can know their rise, flow, and their end also. Few days of practice of analyzing your thoughts in this manner would develop you in a practice as if you are checking upon the birth, rise, and end of the sentiments of your friend. All these thoughts waves shall be found in your thought center. You can judge their real form and can see their reality by having a closer look at them. Feel that these sentiments are not you. They are only objects, which are a mental burden. Discard them and think about the real form of yourself. It will be easy to feel that way. You are analyzing and meditating upon those mental objects which obviously prove that they are apart from you. This feeling of separateness shall go on growing gradually by practice and shall shortly assume a great shape. Do not think that Through these instructions, we are telling the ways to give up the feelings. If you can attain the capability to get rid of evil thoughts with the help of these instructions, it will be of great pleasure. But this is not our object. We would like presently to advise to let the good and the bad triads remain wherever they are. Learn only this much, that ego is beyond them and independent. When you realize the great form of ego, then retrace your steps, control the tendencies which had made you servile till now, and make their proper use as a master, and not be afraid of dumping your tendencies beyond experience of ego. After completing the practice, you will return and would be able to use the good tendencies according to your will. A certain tendency has tied me up. How can I free myself? Do not bother like this. Those are outer things. There was ego in existence before you were tied to the present bondage, and it shall continue to exist hereafter as well. When you can isolate yourself and examine the tendencies, then where is the reason that you would not be able to throw them off in one jug? Main thing of consideration is that you are experiencing and believing that I am making use of intelligence and its powers. This I, which admits these powers as tools, is ego, the master of the mind. Inspirations coming from the spiritual mind can be examined in the similar way. As such, they would also be treated as separate from ego. You would entertain a doubt that the high spiritual inspiration cannot be treated in this manner. Therefore, it is possible that these inspirations may be objects of ego. We have not entered into discussion with you on this issue because you have comparatively little knowledge of this spiritual mind. This mind, as compared to the ordinary part of mind, is like divine preface. Philosophers who have had direct perception of ego and have gained ultimate enlightenment hold this, that ego is above the spiritual mind and illuminates it with its radiance as the reflection of the sun in water, which appears like the sun itself. But they also say that it is merely a dimmed picture. If this luminous spiritual mind is a reflection, then this ego is the perpetual light, which gets spiritual light through their higher class to make it appear so luminous. Suspicion arises to admit it as ego. In fact, that too is not ego. Ego is just like that light emitting jewel which remains glowing constantly, but being covered with clothes, its light is not able to pierce through it. As these clothes are gradually removed, the light becomes more and more bright. Even then, the removal or excess of covering makes no difference, as it does not affect the form of the self-glowing jewel. The only purpose to lead you to this consciousness is to awaken your ego to that supreme developed state, where you can make proper use of the tools. The old, unwanted, rejected, and harmful wheel may be discarded and thrown away, so that with the help of new and wonderful implements in hand, the work may be performed elegantly and easily, which may enable you to declare yourself as successful and victorious. After so much of practice and experience, you would inquire what else remained which may be counted as separate from ego. The reply is pure soul. The proof of this is that you try to isolate the ego from the body, mind, and all other objects. Isolate yourself from small things to subtle and subtler objects gradually, and you would ultimately reach the pure soul. Can there be anything beyond it? No, nothing. The thinker, examiner, and the object to be examined cannot be one and the same object. The sun cannot shine upon itself by its rays. You are not an object of meditation and examination. Still, your consciousness says, I am. This is the proof of the existence of the soul. Through your power of imagination and creativity, you may try to isolate the ego, but you would fail and shall not be able to proceed. You cannot think yourself as dead. This is soul, pure, immortal, unstinted drop of divine ocean as the ray of Almighty. Aspirant, be successful in getting experience of your soul and try to assume that you are a dormant deity. You are retaining within you unlimited power of nature, which is standing before you with folded hands and is seeking your permission to transform itself into practicality. To reach this state, you would require a pretty long time. To attain the first stage, even, you would take some time, but your eyes would open just upon entering the consciousness of spiritual progress. Every subsequent step will be more clear and light will begin to dawn. In the next chapter of this book, we shall tell you that even your pure soul is not entirely independent. Rather, it is a part of the Almighty and how it is fully mixed up with Him. But in order to get this knowledge, you would have to wake up consciousness of ego. Do not ignore these instructions, treating them as mere words. Don't think it insignificant and don't discard them. I am recounting a plain truth. Your soul is aspiring while you are reading these instructions to advance on the path of spiritual knowledge. Accept its lead and march ahead. After completing the mental exercise told so far, you would be able to identify fully the objects other than the ego. After accepting this truth, you would start considering yourself as the master of mind and tendencies, and thereafter you would acquire the ability to utilize them with full force and power. In the narration of sublime matter, our thoughts and words would appear to you as cheap, lifeless, and insignificant. The subject is undefinable. Speech cannot describe it. The sweetness of good cannot be experienced through oral talk. Our only suggestion is that you should take interest and meditate and start doing some mental exercise. By doing so, the mind will get proof of the realities and develop faith in the knowledge of self, which shall go on getting firmer unless you personally experience it. Knowledge is not knowledge. Once you have a glimpse of the truth, it shall not vanish from your sight, and no amount of argument would be able to distort you from the conviction. Now you will have to consider yourself as the master and not the slave. You are the ruler, and mind is your faithful servant. Cast off the cruelties which are being perpetrated upon you by the mind. Consider yourself as free from them. You are being offered a throne. Think yourself as king. Pass an ordinance that behavior, determination, thought, intellect, and desires, etc., all employees accept your rule and sign a new charter, conceding that they would obey the order of their king like faithful servants and will show no sign of negligence in making the administration clean and respected. People think that mind has to put them in a place where their tendencies are pulling them through thorns and are torturing them in different ways. The aspirant will get rid of them as they are aware of the source of their origin, and they have to also acquire the ability required to control them. A novice may become afraid on seeing hundreds of many horsepower engines in a big factory and hundreds of machines with countless parts being propelled by them. He would become nervous on entering the mill. His dhoti may get entangled in some part of the machinery, and he may be unable to disengage himself and thus be put to much harm due to his ignorance. But the engineer who is fully conversant with the functioning of every part of the machine and knows the principle of its working, will be the least afraid on entering the factory. He will control the monstrous looking machines fully and confidently as the Mahavat controls an elephant or a snake charmer tames a venomous snake. He would feel pride on taking charge of such a big factory rather than fear. He would gladly hand over the account in the evening to the mill owner and show the production of quality goods in such huge quantity in such a short period. Pride of success will be oozing from his broad puffed up chest. One who knows the true form of self and tendencies and their relationship is like such a competent engineer and an operator of machines. Long practice lends extraordinary powers.
then not only the vigilant mind but also pravrat and hidden minds get trained and quietly and efficiently carry out the commands they receive even when we are busy, elsewhere or are asleep. When the hidden mind places the work after completion before a new aspirant, he astonished and considers it as an invisible help and divine feat. But the yogi tells him that it is his own ability of which he is ignorant and that thousandfold still lies dormant in him. Practice contentment. The task is difficult, but the gain it brings is enormous. If it takes years of meditation and practice to attain your status, authority, prestige, glory, and consciousness of power, even then you must do it. If you agree with us, then do not be content only with the reading of these words. Make vociferous, steady, deliberate hope, have courage, and move forward on the path of spiritual practice with an intention and confidence. Beej mantra of this lesson: I am the power. Mind is the tool through which I manifest myself. I am different from mind and am not dependent on its power. I am not servant of mind, but its master. I can separate intellect, behavior, conduct, desire, and all other mental faculties from myself. Whatever remains behind is I. I am unborn, immortal, homogeneous, and without any deformity. I exist.